For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tom, a retired heart surgeon. I've traveled the world, and let me tell you, I've been through things that would leave most people speechless. I've encountered legends, faced unimaginable dangers, and witnessed mysteries that most can only dream about. Or perhaps fear. One of my most unforgettable experiences took place in the towering peaks of the Himalayas during an expedition to study local healing practices in a remote village near the Tibetan border. The villagers, wise and cautious, spoke in whispers about a creature, a guardian of the mountain, they said. But I knew what they meant. It wasn't a guardian. They were talking about the Yeti, the legendary snowman. At first, I brushed it off. I'm a man of science. I've held beating hearts in my hands, for heaven's sake. Monsters? They didn't belong in my world. But then, in the middle of a bone-chilling night, I heard something that no rational mind could explain. The sound pierced through the freezing winds. A howl, deep and guttural. So powerful it felt as though it vibrated through my very bones. It wasn't human, and it wasn't any animal I'd ever heard before. That night I could hardly sleep. Every gust of wind carried a sense of dread. Every creak of the wooden hut sounded like footsteps. The next morning, with my mind racing and curiosity eating at me, I convinced a few of the more daring villagers to take me to the place where sightings had occurred. Reluctantly, they agreed, their faces pale with fear. As we trudged through the snow, the temperature dropped to an almost unbearable chill. The air was thin, biting, but it wasn't just the cold. There was something else, something unnatural, looming in the air, like we were being watched. After hours of hiking, we stumbled upon it. The tracks. Massive, impossible. Each footprint sank deep into the snow, easily twice the size of a human's. The villagers froze in their tracks, whispering prayers. My heart pounded, but not with the thrill of discovery. This was something else. Primal fear. The kind that tightens your chest and sends a cold sweat down your spine. I bent down to examine the prints more closely. The edges were sharp, fresh, and as I knelt there, a cold realization washed over me. Whatever made these prints was still close. We pressed on, against all better judgment, and the snowstorm grew fiercer, whipping through the air like nature itself was warning us to turn back. But I didn't listen. I had to know, and then I saw it. A shadow, impossibly large, moving through the storm just at the edge of my vision. I stopped dead in my tracks, my breath catching in my throat. The figure moved with unnatural grace for something so huge, its white fur blending almost seamlessly with the snow. My scalp tingled, the same sensation that had left me bald years ago when I faced horrors too great for words. Suddenly, it stopped. It knew we were there. For a moment, there was silence. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound like a drum in your ears. And then, a roar. Not just any roar. This was a sound that seemed to come from the depths of the earth itself. A bellow so loud and so primal it shook the ground beneath my feet. I could feel it vibrate in my chest, rattling my very bones. My breath caught, my body frozen in terror. The villagers screamed and bolted, but I stood there, rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear, as the creature's glowing eyes locked onto me through the storm. In that moment, I was sure I was finished. This was it. I was face to face with a legend, and legends don't spare those who trespass. The creature took a step forward, and for the briefest second, I felt the weight of its presence, the sheer size of it, towering over me like a force of nature. Its eyes glowed like embers in the snowstorm, full of an ancient rage and intelligence that sent a chill through my soul. It was no mindless beast. It knew exactly what it was, and exactly what I was. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it turned. It vanished into the storm. its enormous form swallowed by the swirling snow, leaving behind only its tracks and the deafening silence of the mountains. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, unable to move, my heart pounding in my ears. When I finally found the strength to walk back, the villagers refused to speak of what had happened. To them, it was a warning, a reminder that some things are best left undisturbed. But to me, it was proof. Proof that the legends aren't just stories. They're out there, waiting, watching. So when you hear stories of the Yeti, remember, it's not just a tale. I've seen it, and I'll never forget the terror of that night in the Himalayas. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because there are more stories like this. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. See you next time.